Hello, everyone. Monday night, and it is the Physicist and Philosopher Hour. And I am R. Wayne Steiger, the philosopher, and we have Dr. Claudia Albers as our physicist. Hello, Claudia.
Hello.
How are you? I'm doing good.
Very well.
Oh, so good to see you.
Yeah, and it's good to see you, and you look well.
Well, I feel well. You know, so I enjoy that. How's your week been? I know you write all the time.
Yes, I write all the time because there's always something to write about. And it's been very interesting because I got to meet Andrew from the Boogeyman channel.
Oh, really?
We did a live stream together, and it's very interesting. He's got a huge telescope, and it takes amazing photographs of things that I thought were there, like, you know, the holographic projections and so on. But he catches them all the time.
You know, speaking of that, two things. I want to get something out of the way real quick, Claudia. So with Steve, with Slightly Slanted Truth, I want to share something here with everyone. Steve, I saw your comment there, and let me pull this up. So I saw this, and Steve with Slightly Slanted Truth channel. Listen, I don't know who this woman is, but I figure it's like this, folks. She's apparently been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, I believe, and she is a mother. And you know what? Cancer, Claudia, is just terrible.
Yeah, it is.
And so everyone, if you can, this will be up later as well when others see it. If you got a couple of dollars, listen, I think anything and everything can help. And we certainly wish Angel all the best as she makes the fight for her life. And Claudia, that's always a very difficult thing to deal with. So on to with the show. And thank you, Steve, for bringing this up, man. I mean, you know, listen, our thoughts and prayers are with her and the family as well. So, Claudia, I saw something from the Black Vault channel that, well, was quite compelling. Use that word, compelling.
Compelling.
Do you see how I use that compelling? you know. So I want to pull this up, and so that everyone can see. Can you see that? It looks like, you know, little black dots, you know.
It's got an outline.
Yes. So full credit goes over to the Black Vault channel. Claudia, I want to pull this up for you.
Yeah, it's of course a holographic projection of the moon, because I don't think we're seeing the real moon ever anymore.
Yeah, let's see. I think, here we go. What is the problem here?
But I already saw it's got an outline. And look at that. It's actually seems to be some kind of frequency on it. You can see it there.
Well, I don't know why
the expected
video is not coming up.
Look at that. Look at the several outlines around it.
Yeah. Well, this was not what I was wanting. Yeah, it is. So let's get this. This is the actual footage, folks. So, Claudia, let me set the stage. This was taken from Rome, Italy on the 28th of July of this year from a amateur astronomer. And we will let the go. And you can go over to blackvault.com. The case has still not been solved. It's one of these that they're saying looks like the real deal, Claudia. So we'll let it play. Gets a little bit long here, and I'll try to push it up. So here he is. He's coming in, waiting for the moon to fill in into the eyepiece. Interesting picture, isn't it, Claudia?
It's very interesting, yes.
So,
you know, yeah, it's what you would expect if they do a superimposed lasers on a holographic plate.
Well, I think that I still don't know how the moon stays up there. I was up on Sunday morning at 4:20 a.m. and we had a blood moon.
Yeah, I
And
have a lot to write about the moon. I'm going to start on that very soon. And I don't think we're seeing the real moon at all. And one of the things they've done is, if you go to NASA and you look for the orbital parameters, everything's fine the way it's been for centuries, except at the bottom they say, oh, the moon has an orbit that changes its closest distance to the Earth to this, and its greatest distance to the Earth to that. And then if you take those two values and you calculate the eccentricity of the orbit, it's now, instead of 0.05, it's now 0.07, and on the other one's 0.06. The thing is, how would they even calculate the lunar eclipses when you're going to get a blood moon if the moon is now in an erratic orbit? Because that's not even an orbit. You cannot have an orbit of a moon where the eccentricity changes from 0.05 to 0.07 and then goes back to 0.07. That's impossible.
well, I think this would be impossible too. I mean, have you seen the craft? It's right here.
Oh.
And watch it. This is a craft. And now look at what comes through, folks. There's the first one. Watch it. It's not over.
It's actually not even moving across the surface of the moon. It's moving through the image of the moon.
Watch this, Claudia.
My goodness, look at that. They just moving in and out. You see that they superimpose on the hologram of the moon. That's what it is. Because if they were moving across the surface of the moon, they would curve towards the bottom as they follow the surface. They're not doing that.
Well, I don't know if it's, I can't see at the bottom, but all I know is that, in my opinion, and it's just my humble opinion, everyone sees something different, but that to me looked like a full-scale armada that was recorded across there.
Yeah, it does look, it's probably UFOs, but as you can see, when an object goes down towards the curved part of an object, it would seem to slow down because it's moving across the surface. And it's now, according to where our eye is, where we follow, it would seem to be moving more vertically downward, so it would slow down. So these objects are not moving across the surface of the moon. They're moving.
No, and I want to say, this was obviously a fleet that the moon in the backdrop was catching across here. And yes. This is remarkable to me. The thing that, like I said, I was 20 years in the video industry. It's very interesting when you begin to see the autonomous movement of what would be. And I just want to bring to your attention, let me go back here.
Could be a whole lot of drones, because the devices we have in the atmosphere would
I just don't know what this is right here. This is something moving on the surface of the moon. These, I don't know if we're seeing, because we can't get the space.
Is this through a telescope?
It is through a telescope.
Have you noticed that we are looking at the moon through a telescope and it's not in focus? And no matter how much you try to focus your telescope on it, it's never in focus. You look at the edge of the moon, appears to be more in focus than the front of it. This is another way that you can tell that this is not the real moon. This is a hologram. And no matter how much you try to focus your telescope, it will not come into focus because that's the image itself is like that.
I can understand that. This is what amazes me, is the crafts right up here. Watch.
Yes.
Look at this, folks. This, and look how it's moving into. So anyway, hats off.
Yeah, and there's so many of them, a whole fleet.
It's just amazing. Folks, you can go here.
And they look very strange. They circular, little circular craft.
They are. This, and by the way, this is a great website. They really come out there. They will debunk if something has been purposely as a fraud. This one, again, the case file status is unidentified. They give all the particulars. Here is the telescope, exactly what he was using and what he was recording off of. So we've got the detailed of the instrumentation. And I just took this steel off this. I mean, this is just too much, Claudia. This is just.
It's so many of them.
Yes, it is. And again, he's not saying that these are on the moon. What he is saying is that this is what he was capturing while filming the moon. So, Claudia, here's one for us. We are finding much more of these FRBs. Have you seen anything on this?
I think I've heard something about it. I think Scott actually did a video on it about these signals, fast radio signals.
Yes.
Well, fast frequency, because, you know, they all travel at the speed of light. But
so these FRBs they're picking up more and more of them. It's almost as if we've suddenly figured out where the signals are looking at.
And apparently it comes from another galaxy.
That's what they say.
they must have been made 100 million years ago or something like that. And by the way, it's being helped by an AI. I just want to let everyone know this. This is a specific algorithm that is used to pick up these frequencies, and this is how we picked it up, which, you know, Claudia, makes sense. Our computers would probably pick up something like that. Yeah. But a regular frequency coming from other galaxies is not abnormal. I mean, we do have neutron stars that repeat a pulse every couple of milliseconds. The astronomers will say that it's because it's rotating. I don't think so. They're pulsing. So stars can pulse at a very regular rate. So if stars can do that, so can galaxies. So it's not necessarily an alien signal. It could be the galaxy itself. It's pulsing at regular rates. Although if it goes up and down, there may be more to it than that. You know, the frequency varies. That's
what I think they were, in fact, picking up. So here's one I thought was real interesting on Yahoo News. Again, they send us these subtle little hints. It's not if, it's when. Apparently, the huge electromagnetic storm is going to hit us, Claudia. I just wanted. Yes,
very interesting. You do know that in some of my articles I state, and I even show the patent where, I don't know, it's from the 1970s or something, where they could already do something with the space weather. So I think they can create artificial space weather.
You know, I just remember the founder of Skunk Works. And when you begin to read what he said, wherever you think we're at, he says, we're 100 years or more ahead.
Yeah, and now they're probably even more ahead.
Even more. I thought this one is, again, you know, these things seem to come in patterns. U.S. urged to rapidly prepare for electromagnetic pulse attack. Just
EMP
like you were saying. Yes, you could do that from space, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You can just explode a nuclear device in the atmosphere. You could also intersect high-power plasma weapons. It doesn't have to be nuclear. They do have these weapons in space. So,
that they do.
You know, when they say, oh, it's so dangerous what North Korea is doing, because they could take a nuclear weapon and explode it in United. Well, excuse me, they have plasma weapons in space. If they wanted to take out their installations, they would have done it already.
They could easily have done it. Now, this is what I found very interesting. You and I were talking before we went on. This is Galileo's lost letter that shows his edited version of his heretical ideas to fool the Inquisitioners.
Oh.
Science seems to be, as you said last week, those which I consider you to be the true scientists, the ones who think, y'all have been under attack for a long time.
Oh, yes, since the beginning, I think, Wayne, because this is the nature of our world where lies are promoted and truth is suppressed.
Yes. And Galileo was actually kind of saying that.
Yeah, it was probably happening to him then as well. And in that
Yes.
case, it was the Inquisition
Yes,
that was after him.
let's see. Were we I want to see what happened here. It's telling me I don't know why that is. Claudia, I got a thing there.
So the church had the doctrine that the sun orbits the earth. I can read it there.
Yes.
And guess what? There are a lot of people around that believe that the earth is flat and the sun is orbiting around the earth. Well, they believe the same thing the Inquisition did then.
Yeah. And you know what they did to people who didn't agree with them? They burned you to the stake.
That's right.
Here's one. The rover from Japan has landed on an asteroid, and this was the picture that it captured. It was, look at that. Let me pull this up for everyone in a, let's see if we can get that. How about that, Claudia?
Very interesting, yes.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, when I look at these asteroids, and this is my first time actually seeing a picture of an asteroid. I don't visit them very often. I think it's just so interesting to see what this craft was catching. Doesn't that look like just someplace you'd see out in the desert?
Yes.
It does.
To tell you the truth, I look at all the footage that they say is coming from space, and I take it all with a pinch of salt nowadays. I don't know if they just produce this is all CGI. I mean, I just did a video the other day, and I examined a video released by the ESA, the European Space Agency. I haven't sent you that article yet. But it's completely, and they say it's Earth from the ISS. But Wayne, there is no way the Earth has a brown, opaque border. It's totally fake.
It's that ozone hole. That's what it is. Well, how about this one? This is Mars. And I found this one particularly odd. How do you get a square mountain on
Mars?
Yeah. And if wind blows, because we know Mars has very large dust storms, wouldn't that be more cylinder than square? I mean, maybe they have sharp angles. I don't know.
No, well, that's probably an old building. That's what it is.
Well, those were the articles I had for this week. So
yeah, sorry, I haven't sent you the one I did yesterday and the one I've just done, where I actually show that the sun cannot be shining on top of our atmosphere, because I don't know if you've noticed, if you look straight up at the sky and the sky is blue, or is it just a thin cloud covering where you can see that it's blue, you'll see that the sky is always darker above your head than if you look horizontally towards the horizon. Because I've been noticing that since 2016. And in 2016, it wasn't like that all the time, but now it is. And the only way that's possible is if the sun's not illuminating the atmosphere from above. Because if the sun is in the midday position, then the brightest part of the sky is supposed to be around the sun. And as the sun moves down towards the sunset position, the brightest part of the sky, the lightest part, would be where the sun is, and it will get dark as you move away from that. It's not like that anymore. And that shows that the illumination in the atmosphere is not provided by the sun at all. It's provided by the simulation system. And because when we look up, we only look through a thin part of the atmosphere, whilst if we look horizontally across, we look through a long length of the atmosphere. That's why it looks brighter blue.
The sun is how how wide did they say it is? It's what, 1,500 Earths?
Yeah.
1,500 Earths can fit in it. Now, I
No,
don't.
it's 100. It's
It's
100
100.
times the radius of the Earth. The thing is, our atmosphere is not being illuminated by the sun from above. It's being illuminated from within. And
Now
it's
you
only a
see,
thin layer by the sun simulation system. Why do we need sun simulators at all? Because the sun is not shining anymore. That's what it shows. And what happened the other day with Russia is what made me realize that it's possible the sun's not shining anymore at all, because it went dark for 3 hours.
I want to pull something up for you, Claudia, because it's very interesting when you look at this as to what it's potentially saying. So this is, and just give me 1 second as it comes up here. Okay. So as I told you, I'm studying in my channel during the day. We're studying the 7 Hermetic Principles. So when you talk about the sun and the atmosphere, I find it very interesting how the ancients saw the same thing. Do you see where the sun is?
Yeah, that's how they saw the sky as a, a sort of a glass globe around the earth. This is the flat earth. To them, they saw the earth as a flat and the sky as a dome over the earth. So this is, and how the sun
Here, which is view.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Would you say my hypothesis is off?
What, that this is how they saw it, as a flat earth and the moon and the sun orbiting around it?
Well, I mean, I said that listen, if there was intelligence that was greater than man, think about this. This would be a projection, a holographic projection.
Oh yes, that's absolutely.
That's what my point is. Yeah, not the flat Earth crap. I don't want to talk about that.
The way I see it, Wayne, is there is a false god that has taken over our planet. And basically, he doesn't have the same control as the creator that created the universe. But what he can do is he can create his own universe, which is the Earth and the Earth's atmosphere, and basically a low orbit. And he can control all that with technological devices. He can create his own sun, his own moon, his own planets. That's his universe.
Well, if we're living in this simulator, this to me, when I saw this and I was putting together my program today, it immediately hit that, well, if you wanted to do a holographic projection, it may, and it's just, no, I'm not saying it is, but it very well could be that this was knowledge known by our ancestors. They just didn't know what to call it.
Well, they knew perhaps then that it would be necessary, or those that were giving them the information knew that it would eventually become necessary. I mean, it is written in the scriptures, it's been there for thousands of years, that the sun would eventually go dark.
Well, it's not only in the Bible, it is replete in many other, even in the Gnostics books, it talks about the same thing. So it's just the point that when you look at philosophy.
I mean, you're right. That thing was like the projection, the holographic projection on the Earth's atmosphere, basically. Yeah?
That's what I saw. And again, it's just an interpretation. If you ever go to an art museum, as you know, you can have a classic piece of art. I went to Andy Warhol's museum there in New York City, along with the Guggenheim. By the way, if you're ever in New York City, the Guggenheim.
I'd love to go. I love museums, to tell you the truth. I haven't been to any in a long time.
In 1993, the Smithsonian Institution was a client of mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I knew Bob Decker. He was the curator, and I got to go in, Claudia, a number of the museums before anyone else. I get there about 6 o'clock in the morning and have 3 hours just to walk around by myself.
Wow. Wonderful.
It was just me and the guards. So Claudia, you have written some papers this week,
Oh,
and
yeah. I even forget what I've written. I write so many.
well, I don't, because I read them.
Oh, good.
So here we are dealing with Venus. I found this one because Venus has always been, how should we say, an oddity amongst the inner planets.
Yes, it is, because it seems to still be settling in as a planet. It's still very hot. And I think we both agree that it was probably a comet not so long ago.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
now it's a planet, but it's got a very dense atmosphere. And the Japanese in 2015 discovered this wave in the atmosphere. Look at the shape of the wave. Now,
Yeah.
I had already been talking about waves before. When I saw the shape of this wave, because I've never seen the wave. Have you ever seen a simulation of high and low tide waves
I've seen the lunar wave.
on the surface of the Earth? Because I've never seen it. They never show that.
I have some video, Claudia. I'll show next week of the lunar wave.
Oh, the lunar wave, yes.
Yeah,
But I meant of the oceans, the tide that the moon is supposed to create on the Earth. I've never seen a simulation of that. And I don't think they will do it because they wouldn't want us to realize that waves are like, or in this form. And what this, I had already said, well, there must be a wave under the stellar cores that are moving across the surface of the Earth, and they are causing these tidal events, ocean recession events, and high tides. And I said, when it happened with Florence, there was a high tide and an ocean recession event about 200 miles away. So I saw both. So I thought immediately, it's a wave with highs and lows. It's a wave. So, but then I said, well, I don't know what they look like. So I drew them. You can go down a little bit. I drew them like it's shown there, with the bulge right above the object. I mean, right below the object, and with the lows on either side. And the low will form a ring all the way around the bulge.
Interesting.
Because I thought, well, I thought that's the way it was, but I knew that's a wave. It's a stationary wave. It's not moving. And remember, gravity is created by a photon. A photon is a wave in motion. But gravity comes from a photon that's contained inside a particle. So it's frozen in time, contained inside the part. So what do? You get a frozen wave, a stationary wave. That's what gravity is.
Would gravity have the same impact on the crest to the valley? Or would there be a variation on gravity?
Well, there's one part where it's supposed to be strong, higher, where you get the highest amplitude. That's where the gravity would be strongest.
Okay.
And in this case, I drew the groove, the trough, not as high as, because I expect, because we have attraction towards the center of the object, that gravity would be strong in the middle. But then I discovered the wave on, and this is basically, if you look from above, this is what you would get. It's a diffraction pattern. It looks like a diffraction pattern with a central maximum. That's where you get the most gravity. And then you get a minimum. That's when gravity reverses. It has to actually reverse for you to get that hollow. Gravity reverses in that region. So where we have the black rings, that's where gravity would reverse direction. You'd be in the opposite direction. Instead of attracting, it will repel.
Interesting. You know, I'll just bring this up as the philosopher. You just stated the fourth principle, and that is the principle of polarity.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how you said that, because gravity would have to have something opposing to it. Opposites are basically the same thing.
Yeah, everything in the universe seems to come in opposites. So actually, gravity and electricity oppose each other, and they're all waves. So you get ups and downs. So with electricity, you get positive and negative polarity, as you say. You get positive and negative polarity of magnetic fields, and you get positive and negative polarity, as you say, with gravity. But the wave on Venus, as you can see, it has a central minimum. Where the wave is highest is on the ring around the central circle or the central minimum. So it's more like the water wave that's shown on the left-hand side.
So Claudia, I know we're talking in the gravity wave right here, but help me explain the physics, the dynamics of how this can, are we saying that this, obviously we can see the clouds here, that they're going normally, which, well, I think Venus is retrograde. This is an amazing phenomenon.
Basically, what it shows is that the density of the atmosphere became much greater in that region where we see the bulge. It doesn't mean the bulge goes above the atmosphere, it's in the atmosphere, but it created a wave within the atmosphere. If that had been the ocean, it would create a wave on the ocean.
Do you postulate in here what do you think caused the gravity wave?
Yes, it was a stellar core. It has to be a massive object close to the planet that created this. So now you see, now I said, because we have that, we must have that the wave is actually the first ring around the center. The center is now where gravity reverses.
Interesting.
So it means that it's like that water wave there. As you can see, it's got a central hollow. Yeah. The actual wave where the gravity is strongest, the most strongly attractive, is in the first ring around the central hollow.
Now,
and then after that, there's another hollow which is even deeper than the hollow in the center. That's where gravity reverses again.
So we're seeing, and I'm just trying to do this, Claudia, is what I'm doing here, but we're seeing what I would see and this is huge, Claudia. Well, you think of Venus. So, and then we have, what would this do to planet Earth if something passed by doing?
This is why we're getting those ocean recession events, Wayne. This is what
I see where you're going. Okay. All right.
Because that hollow is the ocean, would create an ocean recession if it was on the Earth where we have ocean and where it touches a coastline. If that wave goes through a coastline, you will get an ocean recession event where that low part of the wave, intersects the coastline. That's why we've been getting them. That's what it is. It shows that these are waves. They are created by objects in space that are coming from space. And that's what the wave is. You see, it's got a central hollow, and then it's got, on either side, it's got the high tide part, and then surrounding that is the low. And the low will produce the ocean recession events.
Interesting. So here we go.
So this would be what would be causing it. So stellar core wasn't that close to the planet because the ring has quite a large radius. So that's the side view would go right around the planet. And then I show the front view there. So that's what it will look like from the front, from where the stellar core is. If you were standing there and looking at the planet, it will look like a ring on the planet.
Is it the attraction and repulsion of the density of a stellar core to a planet? Would there be a cancellation there somewhere?
The thing is, a stellar core may be very large and very massive, but it produces a low gravitational field. If this object was like solar system objects, it would have destroyed Venus by being this close, basically. It would just pull all its atmosphere off it.
Strip it, just like we suspect with Mars.
Yeah. It would just take, but it's weak. Gravitational, stellar cores are very weak gravitationally. So they affecting Venus by producing these waves on it. And they'll do the same thing on Earth, producing tidal events.
You know, this is very interesting, Claudia, because I think we just brought a key point that I think has been the center of a lot of people's trying to think about this. Mm-hmm. They think a large mass has a density of gravity compared to the mass of the object. And I like how you just pointed out, that's not true. You can have a very large object with a very low density or basically low gravitational force.
That's right.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
See, folks?
And it's because they did objects, they're low in energy. Their photon energy is low. And that's what produces an object's ability to interact gravitationally. It's that energy. So they're low in energy, their gravity is low.
You know, when I think of your work, when I see programs that talk about when we see novas and we see stars that are exploding, and I often wonder when science will begin to catch up to realize that there are huge, matter is matter. And if it's being flung out from an exploding star, etc., you can't sit there and tell me rationally that you know definitively that there isn't any other mass to that.
Yeah, I mean, what the stellar cores show us is that they usually say, oh, a nova, a supernova is when a star dies, but it's just the opposite. A dead star doesn't have the energy to go supernova. It's only a young star, and what they do is they fission into two stars.
So let's get this, help the class here, Claudia. I'm going to raise my hand here. So, teacher, what I'm thinking then, if the universe is, what do they suspect? Something 14 billion?
Yeah, they say it's 13.8 billion years old, I think.
Okay, so let's just take their hypothesis and we'll apply it to what I'm asking you. In that period of time, we see stars that are born, we see stellar nurseries, but yet you do not hear science addressing what would have to be into the trillions of dead stars.
Exactly. But to them, all dead stars would have turned into black holes. And black holes. Yeah, exactly. But we know they don't turn into black holes because we have these huge dead stars in our solar system that have not turned into black holes. They have a core like planets, and they're huge. But that's the theory. They've turned science upside down. To them, young star, what are actually dead stars or young stars? What is young stars or dead stars? Everything's reversed. But this is very interesting because here I actually show what happens as the stellar core comes closer to Venus. What happens to that ring, that wave? It gets higher, so it gets a higher amplitude, and it gets the radius of it is reduced until what you get is, when the object's very close, you get a vortex.
Interesting.
So these waves turn into vortexes, and this is why vortexes always have a hollow on the inside. Have you noticed that? If you see water draining down the drain in your sink, there's always a hole right through the middle of it.
Yes.
It's because of the symmetry of the gravitational wave that always has a minimum on the inside at the center.
That's very interesting because I know the counter argument to the theory here is that when we see, for instance, now I'm trying to think strands on the sun, and when we see cavitations on the limb of the sun, and yet we can see pictures from Secchi where this cavitation continues millions and millions and millions of miles away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these plasma connections that these objects are doing are actually gravitational vortices. It's the gravitational interaction that these objects are having with the sun that's causing them to draw material from the sun. And I've shown in other articles that it actually comes from the chromosphere. It comes from the tight vortex comes from below the corona, comes from the chromosphere. And the chromosphere, I believe, is actually in the liquid phase.
Now, here's your example here. You were talking about the vortices.
Yes.
Very interesting.
So vortices, this is why hurricanes always have an eye, where you have no circulation of air in the eye. That because a hurricane is a gravitational vortex. And it has a central hollow. That's why it has an eye. So are tornadoes. Tornadoes are gravitational vortices.
I'm thinking as above, so below, as below, so above.
And they can be generated electromagnetically because you never get electrical without the gravitational. A gravitational interaction will always produce an electric field, an electric potential, and the other way around.
So here,
yes. So that means that all planets have to be hollow because whenever a galaxy or a star has a matter creation event where light turns into matter, and that's when the gravitational field starts, the gravity wave will produce a core that will have a hollow in it because that's the way it's shaped.
Interesting.
So all planets will have hollow centers, and they may have other regions where they have shells where gravity reverses.
Listen, I still contend that even that which science says that they have begun to identify and catalog, I still say even that which we've discovered, I think we're going to realize that we didn't discover everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm discovering things all the time. I'm just happy to understand. To me, this understanding that I've now developed of gravity is a very fulfilling for me because I've always wanted to know what gravity was and how it works. And I've now discovered that it's complementary, the electric and the gravitational field. One generates the other and the other way around. It's like a feedback loop. You don't get one without the other. But these objects we have in outer space will produce much stronger effects than can be generated by devices producing the electric effects. They can still generate earthquakes and tornadoes and so on in the atmosphere through applying electric fields. But the objects in space can produce such strong gravitational effects that they will produce associated electric effects that are so strong that the severity of the events they can create can be absolutely cataclysmic and sudden.
Claudia, I was just thinking as you were talking, if, let's say, a stellar core was passing over the planet of the Earth, and I wish I'd had that other paper up here because it was, my point is that the Earth acts as a convex lens as we see things out supposedly. So if an object very large was to pass by, it could still be out there a distance, but because of the way that we see through the atmosphere, it would appear to be close, right?
Yes, it will appear to look larger to us than it actually.
Yeah, it's like your mirror. Objects look bigger and closer than what they really are.
Yeah. It's our atmosphere is refractive. But from what they are doing, they're doing everything in their power to hide the presence of these objects. So the only way we get to see that they're out there is through their effects. That's why the ocean recession events are so important. Those can only be created by an object coming from space. There's no other way to create these things. You cannot create them artificially. no matter how strong the electromagnetic fields are that they are creating. This is just outside of what's possible.
Would you say that with the approach of Planet X, whatever we want to call that, it seems to be like it has a very large following. And I mean by that, it seems to have a lot of debris and objects carrying with it.
Yes, when the thing is, there is an almost unlimited number of these objects that are still outside of our solar system. Because I don't know if it was, if I've explained this to you. I think I sent you the article about the interstellar medium, where the interstellar medium is 30 light years across. So it's 20,000 times larger than our solar system. And our solar system is now contained inside it. And this is actually what the Planet X system is. It must have thousands upon thousands of objects in it. They're all dead. They're all dead stars, dead planets, and dead moons. And I think as when our sun was strong, it kept most of them out. And as it got weaker, more and more of them started coming in. So here we see two of these objects that have connected to the Earth. How do we know they are connected? Well, first of all, you know, some people always say these lens flares. But the two objects above there, you can see three light sources. A bright one in the center, and then there's this pinkish one at the top, and then another one towards the bottom. As you can see, they are behind clouds, chemtrail clouds. So those are in the background and therefore real objects in the sky. In the front, in front of the mountain, we do have some lens flares. Lens flares are always in the foreground, in the front of the image. So those are lens flares. Those objects are in the sky. They're real objects in the sky. They're not lens flares. Now we see three objects. The middle one is, of course, the simulator. It's white, you know. But the other, and I show below as well that the sun simulator moves across the sky and the two objects stay there. Now, it's impossible for an object in space to seem to remain stationary. You know this, one, because you have a telescope. It's impossible for two objects in the sky to remain stationary because the Earth is rotating, unless they have made a connection with the Earth itself and so are moving with the Earth.
I want to pull down to this one here. This is quite remarkable because look at that, folks. There you clearly see. Look at that.
They're not moving. The sun moves, or the sun simulator, which is simulating the sun and its movement in the sky, moves, but the objects don't move. And that immediately shows you what they are. These are stellar cores. They do the same thing in the sun. They remain stationary in the sun's corona. And the fact that they haven't moved means they're most likely extremely close to the Earth, probably in the upper atmosphere, in fact. Because they go into, when they go into the sun's corona, they basically enter the sun's atmosphere, lower atmosphere. So they would do the same thing with the Earth. These are most likely moon cores, small objects, but they're coming very close to the Earth. And they're making the connection, they're absorbing energy. That's why they're remaining stationary.
This is remarkable. Look at this, folks. You can actually see the progression. This is very good work, whoever caught this. Where was it?
This was GFP, and I think this is from 2016.
Yeah, Kyrgyzstan. Look at that.
It's amazing.
This is amazing. It really is. I mean, I'm looking at this.
This is evidence that we have these objects being hosted by the Earth. I don't say they're in orbit because they have very strange behavior. They come in, they remain stationary, they move out, they may then go into orbit, and then they come in again, do a refueling session, go back, orbit, and
this is remarkable footage. I mean, the pictures, quite interesting.
It's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, they are. Wow. Claudia, I just I'm looking at this and just doing the comparison on the stacks.
Mm-hmm. You can clearly see what's happening, that the objects are not moving in the sky.
No. I'm getting more and more emails from people that are seeing two suns. I had a woman who wrote me, she was going back from the hospital, lived out on the west coast of California. And as they were returning home, both her and her mother are looking. And she said right there, she said there were two suns setting.
Yeah, because
what are people seeing?
there's so many objects in the sky. Who knows which ones are real, which ones are simulations anymore? I am not sure. I know this doesn't look like a simulation. I mean,
No.
the simulation is the sun simulated. The two smaller objects seem
This is
some
just so
and they're
remarkable.
stationary. But that's also why we're getting so many blood moons, because I think they're using some of these objects will come in and they will look like moons, because they haven't absorbed this cloud cover around them where they're emitting light. So there will be the core itself, and the core will look like a moon. And then what they do is they try to project moon features in front of it using their holographic projection system. And they may then, because it may be emitting some red light, look like a blood moon. So I think the blood moons are local. You may see a blood moon, someone else 1,000 miles away will not.
Correct.
And real blood moon is seen from all over the planet.
It's supposed to be. It's like, I thought there was only one of them up there.
Now, it's because they're covering up for these objects being close to a certain point on the surface of the Earth, and they're covering it up with a blood moon.
Claudia, and that's what I saw. I was not going to actually film it. I mean, I was typically get up early anyway. I do a lot of my reading and meditation at that time. But when I went out, I said, well, now this is very bizarre. I said, the moon is becoming that rust color. And I'm going, but it's not supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I went out and got the cameras and started taking the pictures. But it was like, this is bizarre. And of course, no one's up at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think there's so much going on in our skies, and they just can't cope with it all. And, they make mistakes all the time as well.
It almost,
people don't notice. It's only people with a trained eye like you that, wow, what's going on here? Blood moon? It's not supposed to have I don't even know how they would how would they calculate when there would be a blood moon, to tell you the truth, because according to the data, as I mentioned, the orbital data for the moon, it's changed. The moon is not even in an elliptical orbit anymore. So they won't be able to calculate anything with that.
We have viewers all over the world, and this is Thorm, who lives up in Norway. In fact, he has followed me for a number of years. Mm-hmm. He wrote this, and I want to read this to you. Ursa Major is approximately the same place on the sky, but Orion Bell is a lot of degrees to the left. And remember, he speaks Norwegian, so he's pretty good in his English. Mm-hmm. Orion is outside the center of the galaxy as we are headed inwards or outwards, or did Orion's belt move? What's happening?
Yeah, so, the thing is, they're simulating the sky.
Ah, okay. So
yeah, basically, I haven't said anything about the stars, but I think they're simulating the planet. I know they're simulating the moon and the planets for sure, because if the sun is not shining, even if the sun was still shining some of the time, it wouldn't be shining all the time. So, and if the sun's not shining, the planets would not have any light to reflect, so we wouldn't see them. And the same with the moon. So I don't think we're seeing the moon and the planets anymore. So they're definitely simulating those. but they're possibly simulating other parts of the sky as well. We don't know even if the Earth is in the same orbit around the sun. We don't know that. We don't know if the Earth has tilted to a strange angle. We know nothing, because without the sun and with the simulation system in our atmosphere, we don't know. So, and then we could possibly navigate by the stars by looking for Polaris to see where the North Pole is, but they could be simulating that as well. They could just put anything they want up there, and we think we're in the right place, we're in the right orientation because Polaris is still up there. But it could be a simulation.
As you were talking, I was imagining the chemtrailing. Really what they're doing, they're gassing us so that when we look up, we don't know what we're seeing, and we'll accept it as, the facts. Just the conspiracy.
That's right. Yes,
well,
that's right.
There has to be a reason for all this.
Yeah, I mean, the chemtrails are actually producing a type of photographic plate for the holograms. So they can computer generate the hologram, and then they can imprint it on the chemtrail layer they've produced. And I think they will be using sound generation sources, some way of generating sound, because the sound waves will produce areas of high density and low density. So what they do then is produce like a diffraction grating. It's actually a hologram made out of metallic nanoparticles, which they injected into the atmosphere. And then all they do is they shine a laser. They put a lens in front of the laser to spread out the laser. And then they shine the laser onto the hologram, and they produce whatever they want, the hologram, the three-dimensional sky.
And they tried to tell me that drugs would ruin my mind. When I look at what they're doing to us now, it amazes me. And
and it's killing us. And then, they want less population, of course. So basically, they're killing a lot of birds with one stone.
Well, I keep on contending, has the great calling begun? I just, when you look at what's happening in this world, it is crazy, Dr. Albers. It is crazy. We are just insane.
Well, it hasn't only just started, because it's been happening for a long time. World War I was a culling event. World War II was a culling event. And I'm sure they're planning World War III, which will be the largest culling event.
Yeah, and I fully expect to start seeing some of the more, how should we say, genetic, exotic pandemics. I still contend.
Ebola is one of them. It hasn't spread very far. But, the largest epidemic is actually pharmaceutical drugs. Because you know how many people die from using those.
I do a lot on that, and it's true. Well, Dr. Albers, another hour has come and gone. I want to let everyone know, Scott put these together. I put the link down, and many of you have asked about, he put together these pretty cool T-shirts, as you can see.
Yeah, he's really good at
it.
It
is. And Claudia, we got to get yours done. Tell him we got to get yours done so we can then meld the two together, because I really think I'll
tell him he must make one for me.
Yes, because
we should make one for, with the two of us.
I think we need to, and we should get some hoodies, because it's going to be cold this winter.
Oh, yes.
You'll see Claudia and I here in the middle of December, with our little pots in here. So what
I don't like the cold at all.
Hey, listen, I swear this weekend it hit 90 degrees again. And
wow.
I know. And the reason why I left Texas was that I was tired of the heat. Austin, Texas. I was in Austin, Texas in 1998, and I believe the temperature on Christmas Day hit 91.
Wow.
And I said, this sucks. So, got something going up here into Denver and moved up here. And now it looks like everyone from Texas is moving up to Colorado. So, Miss Albers, what do you have going on this week over on your station? By the way, folks,
I'm going to write some articles about the moon. I did some research on the moon, and I can see that the mess that they've made of the data and all the simulations they have of the moon, it's as if they want people to believe that the real moon is not there anymore, and all there is these moon simulators, that it's always been just a simulator. No. In 1957, they calculated the distance to the moon. They measured it with radar.
Yeah.
The moon is where it's supposed to be. It's just not visible.
Not visible. I tell people it is the most elegant mind coitus of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's one of my favorite words. Well, Claudia, it's always fun.
Yeah, it's lovely, and it goes by so quickly.
It does. I can't wait till you do the articles on the moon, and I definitely like to do, pull up some of your articles as well on gravity. Gravity is still one of these ones that,
Yeah.
When you stop and think about it, you're going, what?
Yeah, I mean, the concept is not easy to understand. I guess it's easier for me because I've been thinking about it for a long time.
Yeah.
How gravity works. And I did, start understanding how it works. And I'm sure I don't know everything yet. There's a lot more to understand about it, but
there's a lot
I'm happy with the progress I've made. I
think you've done very well, madam.
Thank you.
I think you've done exceptionally well. Folks, make sure to go over there and subscribe to Claudia's channel. She does programs during the week, and she's starting to get very popular, and other people are having her on her channel. So we have a rare opportunity and treat here each Monday night. And I thank you, Dr. Albers.
Thank you. I love it, Dwayne. It's nice to do this with you.
It's one of my favorite shows to produce, and I enjoy it immensely.
Good.
All right. Well, give Scott my best, and
I will.
We will see you next Sunday. Thanks, everyone. All the moderators, Claudette. I saw just a number of people. We had another full house in here again tonight.
Wonderful. And if any MFA members watch this, I'll say hello to MFA members.
Yes, absolutely. I see a couple of people. I am going to be having Anja on Friday. I think we're going to try to get some guests. Do you have any guests coming up on your channel?
I don't know. I think we had Andrew the Boogeyman on a live stream.
I love that. Andrew the Boogeyman.
And I think we're going to do one on theirs. Cool. It was a lot of fun, wow. He showed us so much about what the work he's been doing on the moon and all kinds of ISS footage, which is basically a set on Earth. That's where the ISS footage is done.
It's weird. I agree. That thing is I've got hundreds of gigs of footage, and when I go back and I look at some of the stuff before, I'm going, what am I looking at again?
I mean, he showed a picture of astronauts with a camera taking a picture of themselves on the ISS, and there was an open window behind them.
Oops. Well, the prop crew didn't get that memo.
Oh, they did it on purpose. That's the conclusion I've come to. They probably did it on purpose. Some kind of agenda that they have.
Oh, it's crazy. Well, thank you, Claudia.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see y'all next week. Claudia, I got to go.
Okay. Bye,
and tell Scott to make sure to get us the teachers. I mean, we got to get one of you and I.
Okay. I'll tell you.
Okay. All my best, everyone. We will see y'all again next week. Claudia, have a great week, my dear.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.